Welcome to our continuing devotional series, Beneath the Cross of Jesus, a series in which we are looking at some of the people who were present at the crucifixion. In this section of our study, we have expanded our view to take in the hours leading up to the actual crucifixion. By doing so, we can include some people who played a prominent role in the crucifixion of Jesus, even though they may not have been at the cross itself. In our last study, we looked at Simon Peter, the disciple who, in spite of his threefold denial of Jesus, came back and was restored as a faithful disciple of Jesus. In our study today, we'll be looking at Pontius Pilate. Pilate was the fifth governor of Judea. Pilate was the man to whom the Jewish leaders took Jesus. And Pilate was the man who condemned him to be crucified. And he also asked a vital question. And that question is one that you and I must give our undivided attention to. And the Bible paints a very uncomplimentary picture of Pilate. And it is one that agrees with the secular records of his day. Those accounts portray him as a wrathful and a very stubborn man, one who wielded the power of Rome in a very harsh manner, indicated in the Bible in Luke chapter 13, where some came to Jesus and in verse number 1 told him about the Galileans whose blood Pilate mingled with their sacrifices. Pilate took these people who were worshiping and killed them. That shows you the harsh and wrathful side of Pilate. But actually Pilate was a weak man, one who acted out of fear and one who acted out of self-preservation. Many times such a person tries to hide behind a false bravado, trying to intimidate others, although he lacks the courage to follow through. Much like a little dog that will bark ferociously until you turn toward him, and then he runs with his tail tucked between his legs. Pilate knew what was right. Pilate knew that Jesus was innocent, and he knew that the Jews had delivered Jesus for envy. And he tried to do what was right. He tried numerous ways to have Jesus released, but he was not willing to put himself on the line. He was not willing to risk any personal sacrifice to do the right thing and to save Jesus. And also in his examination of Jesus, Pilate raised a number of questions. Some of these are questions that you would expect to hear, as in John chapter 18, verse 29, when Pilate asked the Jewish leaders, "What accusation do you bring against him?" That sounds much like a judge asking, "What's the charge against the defendant?" And when the Jewish leaders responded by saying that Jesus made himself a king, in Luke's account, Luke chapter 23, he gives this as their answer. Pilate then asked Jesus, "Are you the king of the Jews then?" And again, that sounds much like what you would expect in that kind of a proceeding. Of course, Pilate also asked the famous question, what is truth? John chapter 18, verse 38. And I'm not really sure what Pilate meant by that question. It's been interpreted many different ways, from an honest inquiry as to what truth is, all the way to a jaded expression of cynicism, and as if to say, can we ever really know what truth is? And I tend to lean toward the latter as far as what Pilate was saying in view of his actions that night. And stop and think a moment. When he asked the question, here is truth incarnate standing before him. Here is the Word that has existed from eternity. Here is the one who but hours earlier had said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." And it is before this one that Pilate raises the question, what is truth? It's not too much to say. Pilate was staring truth in the face, but he wasn't willing to accept it or to act upon it. And of course, the question that I want to turn our attention to as he continued is found in Matthew chapter 27 In verse number 22. Now this question is raised as Pilate is seeking some way to release Jesus, already having stated he found no fault in him. And he uses one of the customs. At that feast, it was the custom to release a prisoner. And so he offered them a choice: Jesus or Barabbas. Now Barabbas was a murderer. Barabbas was a thief. He was one who raised insurrection, and surely the crowd would not ask for his release. But when he put the question before them, under the leadership of the Jewish leaders, this crowd asked for Barabbas. And then he raised the question, Pilate raised the question, almost in shock over their choice. Matthew chapter 27, verse 22. Then what shall I do with Jesus, who is called Christ? Now we know what Pilate did. We know what follows from that. And we see how his actions were wrong. But what I want us to do is to make sure that we make that question a personal question. Not what did Pilate do with Jesus, but what will I do with Jesus? What will you do with Jesus? And you know, there's only two answers really to that question. Either I will submit to him as my Lord and I will obey him, or I will refuse his authority over me and I will live my life as I please. And you know, you answer that question every day. By the choices you make, by the things that you do, you answer the question, what shall I do with Jesus who is called Christ? Do you spend time in Bible study? Or does dust collect on the cover of your Bible? Do you spend time regularly praying to God? Or do you instead allow the world to fill your life with its noise? Do you choose your activities based upon what pleases the Lord or what pleases your fleshly desires? You answer that question every day by the kind of husband you are, the kind of wife you are. You answer that question by the way you are with those people around you at work or at school. You answer that question by how you apply the gospel in your life on a daily basis. What will you do with Jesus? You give the answer in your life. And you must answer the question. There's no sidestepping it. You can't refuse it. You remember the last gesture that Pilate made? After he released the people, or Jesus to the people, he had a basin of water brought and he washed his hands and he said, I am innocent of the blood of this just man. See you to it. But that didn't work. Pilate was not innocent. He was still involved. He was complicit in the death of Jesus. And it didn't work for him, and it will not work today. We can't sidestep the question. We can't refuse to answer. What will you do with Jesus is a question that faces me, it faces you every day. It's indeed a sobering question. And it is a question best answered beneath the cross of Jesus, when we see what he did on our behalf. I hope that you'll continue to study with me, and I hope our study today of Pilate is one that will help you. As we've been looking at these people beneath the cross, it gives us an opportunity to examine ourselves, just like we've done with Pilate. Keep that question before your mind. What will you do with Jesus? I hope you'll continue to study with me, and until the next time we study, may God bless.